What's up guys, welcome back. This is Anime Crossover. You'll be watching What If Naruto Was the Emperor of Elements, in the Avatar Part 11. Now, let's begin. Naruto and Drea. Located at an elevated position above the Sea of Mosei, situated between the Earth Kingdom and the Fire Nation. The significant day of inaugurating a new chakra had arrived. Mastering the art of firebending required numerous daily climbs into a boiling volcano. Why must I undertake all the physical training independently? It felt unusual to express dissatisfaction about myself, as all four of us experienced the same sentiments simultaneously through our shared Kai. I observed Drea comfortably positioned in my embrace. From this vantage point, I had a clear view of her elegant neckline, subtly revealed by her attire. Observing it prompted me to reflect. In recent months, all aspects of my being have been pursuing solitude alongside the women simultaneously. The experience of engaging with multiple individuals at once was truly remarkable. This has the potential to become an addiction. The focus should remain on acknowledging the challenges and continuing to develop as a person. At the center of my chest, I experienced a sensation that was unfamiliar. The fourth air chakra has manifested, closely associated with my airbending capabilities. It was located right there. In principle, if I did not intentionally focus on it, it did not interfere whatsoever. Many masters, recognizing their true strengths and limitations, often do not reach the conclusion of their journey, halting either at the beginning or midway through their development. I could have attempted to access the chakra near the volcano, so to speak, without departing from the location. However, possessing a foundation of knowledge as a support is always beneficial. Even in the absence of any Kai, theoretically, it could surpass my capabilities. Furthermore, there was nothing preventing it from indirectly influencing that Kai. The primary objective was for me to attain salvation. The chakra is obstructed by the experience of suffering. Upon achieving success, I would receive a modest reward in the form of heightened foresight and enhanced intuition, akin to a true master of the elements. Even prior to its opening, it appeared to have already provided me with something. Otherwise, I would be unable to articulate the increased sense of anticipation and anxiety. I was fortunate to navigate the second and third chakras with minimal challenges. The challenge was limited to the initial chakra. I was returning to the library for that reason. In general, if my bodies were to reunite, the likelihood of a favorable outcome might improve. However, I ultimately chose to proceed in Yo's body. All experiences occur for the first time at some point, so it is advantageous to embrace them sooner rather than later. Simultaneously, I would assess the condition of my other bodies and observe the outcomes for them. Jun would oversee Roku, Kai would monitor Naruto, and Jien, whom I had confidence in, would be responsible for Wan. Later that day, we entered a room meticulously arranged by Wan Shi Tong, adorned with various enigmatic symbols that echoed ancient bending techniques. Each time I observed them, I experienced a sense of envy. Who wouldn't aspire to master the art of programming reality through the manipulation of the elements? All preparations are complete, the spirit stated. I will oversee your Kai continuously. Should there be any deviation from the standard, a mandatory procedure to disrupt the flow of Kai will be implemented. In theory, this should assist you in waking up. You possess remarkable strength. There's no need to exert yourself further, Drea urged me. That is insufficient, I replied, shaking my head. As with any individual in a similar situation, I was not inclined to subject myself to avoidable risks. However, there are circumstances in which it is essential to acquire proficiency in a new bending technique. I am commencing. I shifted my focus away from the distractions of the world and concentrated on the door that separated me from the chakra, a crucial barrier to my airbending mastery. My subconscious perceived it as a robust door, its hinges seemingly on the verge of failure. Initiate a work stoppage. Additionally, I approached it with unwavering determination, harnessing my inner energy. Following approximately 100 strikes, the door opened. Kai naturally enveloped my body, positioning itself close to my heart, thereby improving my bending capabilities. As I opened my eyes, I observed Drea's concerned expression. Wan Shi Tong extended his congratulations to me with composure. The Kai has attained a heightened level of density, reflecting the advancement of my airbending abilities. In the next moment, the silhouette of Drea's form appeared before me as she advanced in my direction, a vision of the future revealed by my recently acquired foresight. A millisecond later, Drea echoed my observation. Could this be foresight? I pondered with enthusiasm, perceiving it as a blessing from the spirits. As time progressed, my ability only grew stronger. I developed an instinct for anticipating how and where an opponent would strike, akin to predicting their bending techniques. Once a week, I was able to gain deeper insights into the future. I promptly seized the opportunity presented. The strategies of the Fire Nation were distinctly evident. Having earned Zuko's trust, I positioned myself at the forefront of the assault on the temples, utilizing my keen instincts to skillfully navigate their attacks, remaining impervious to their bending techniques. This ability appears to render Vaatu manageable. However, circumstances rapidly evolved. One day, I observed the planned execution of an assassination targeting Ursa and Azula. I had a complete hour available. A series of unlikely coincidences resulted in a minor delay for one of just a few minutes. I arrived precisely at the moment to discover the remains of individuals close to me, their lives tragically ended by a potent toxin. This had a significant impact on me. I increasingly depended on the fourth chakra, maintaining that state consistently, while my airbending abilities became a significant support. Shortly after, in proximity to the city of Jailing, a formidable ancient spirit emerged, successfully breaching the barrier into the human realm. In a challenging confrontation, a whole city faced devastation, and it was only with the arrival of Wan Shi Tong that the spirit was successfully repelled to its own realm. However, the lost loved ones cannot be brought back. Comparable occurrences started to take place among all my close associates. Each subsequent loss impacted me deeply. Deep sorrow, profound grief, and enduring suffering became my constant companions. It seemed as though I had reached the pinnacle of achievement as a master bender, only to experience an even more painful descent. In that moment, I did not inquire why my mind, augmented by that mental spirit, struggled to manage the negative emotions. Rational and coherent inquiries, along with certain discrepancies in the situation, did not occur to me. One day, I came to the profound realization that I could not continue my life without the presence of my loved ones. Abandoning bending appeared to be a straightforward decision. It seemed as though I would finally attain relief from the persistent discomfort. The subsequent deep breath I inhaled occurred in the space where I had activated the fourth chakra. The same apprehensive Driya, the same composed Wan Shi Tong. The last 2 years have seemed almost surreal. I have now entered the professional realm, I reassured myself. However, the cycle repeated itself once more, and once again. With each occurrence, the circumstances varied, yet all others, save for myself, met their demise. A profound sense of sorrow enveloped my soul, deeply affecting my entire being. I found myself in a state of resignation, yielding to the overwhelming sense of my own limitations as a bender. You've likely experienced loss as well, uncle? My unkempt appearance caught the attention of a girl who seemed to be in a similar state. The minions of the Dark Spirit have taken control of the world, resulting in ongoing conflicts, violence, and treachery throughout. The streets of what was once a prosperous town are now populated by children abandoned in this harsh reality. I find myself alone as well, she remarked, taking a seat beside me. You appear quite strong, she observed. Together, we will certainly manage more effectively. I possess skills in embroidery and cooking, she added with a hint of pride. As I focused on the girl, I observed unkempt, tangled hair cascading chaotically over her fatigued visage. However, I could still discern 2 distinct, radiant pools confidently observing their surroundings. My fragmented mind perceived the characteristics of all my cherished ones in her visage. The most important aspect is to consistently cherish the presence of your loved ones. My parents and sister are always close to me. She placed her small fist over her heart. Forever in my thoughts, she smiled with a brightness that only children possess. The heart must be open to love. The girl, both unfamiliar and yet deeply familiar, continued her discourse. Yes, initially, I did not even recognize my own voice. It sounded so unfamiliar. We will be together. I attempted to smile while absent-mindedly patting her head. They would certainly express their disapproval. The expressions of my loved ones were devoid of pain. Instead, they regarded me with affection and warmth. In that instant, the image before me faded from its previous hues, shattering like glass. Naruto. Driya's urgent voice resonated in my ears, capturing my immediate attention. After an additional 5 minutes of firm embraces from Driya, to whom I held on as if she were a lifeline, I was able to regain my composure. I found myself shedding a few tears as Driya shared her words of encouragement. That was quite alarming. It appears that I have only now grasped the reason why so few benders choose to embark on the journey of opening chakras. Approximately 1 hour elapsed. The initial 20 minutes were stable. However, shortly thereafter, muscle tremors commenced, brain activity heightened, and the body appeared to be under continuous stress. Wan Shi Tong began to elucidate, noting my regained consciousness. Beginning at the 45th minute, all activities started to diminish. After an additional 5 minutes, the body ceased its struggle for survival. The heart gradually pumped less blood. Could a chakra influence that? He inquired, either in jest or with sincerity. If I had just one more minute, I would have been able to conduct a thorough examination, he remarked. It is probable that the girl represented my subconscious, which, in its final effort, sought to instill in me the will to live. No other thoughts emerged at this moment. The other individuals encountered the same experience as Yo. No backup bodies were present. We would have faced a simultaneous demise. Upon arrival, Naruto, Wan, and Roku promptly embraced everyone, and even shared kisses with some individuals. It likely presented a remarkable view from the exterior. Expressions of surprise and confusion, as though we had not encountered one another in a considerable time. However, it genuinely seemed to me that an excessively lengthy duration had elapsed. Additionally, I had to ensure that everyone was secure and well. Today, I did not feel inclined to test new bending abilities. My priority was simply to be close to my loved ones. Even dialogue was unnecessary, mere presence sufficed. With the passage of time, my emotions became more stable, allowing me to reflect on the changes that had taken place in my body and energy. The quantity of Kai has increased, becoming denser and slightly more rapid. I ceased to focus on cosmetic transformations. I certainly did not present a more intimidating presence. Regarding the abilities conferred by the chakra, it is accurate to state that foresight was indeed present. It lacks the same level of power. One moment, please. That is the extent of my foresight. The capability was functional solely during combat scenarios. It falls short of expectations, naturally. However, I am now able to perceive spirits beyond the primary quartet. With the elemental senses, I was able to anticipate the movements generated solely by the pure spirits of water, earth, fire, and air. The collaboration with Drea and Wan Shi Tong was unsuccessful. The ability may enhance over time, ultimately becoming essential for a master bender. At this time, it serves as a pleasant addition. I preferred the improved intuition. Not due to its superiority, it simply evoked the instincts of a bender. In my childhood, I greatly admired individuals who possessed the ability to sense danger, and naturally, I aspired to acquire similar skills. A sensation akin to the emergence of a new, unseen organ within my body arose, transmitting signals of impending danger. A subtle sensation coursed through my body, and my intuition indicated the direction from which the attack would originate. It was nearly indistinguishable from foresight. However, Wan Shi Tong held a different perspective. To ensure the integrity of the experiment, he readily guided me to the spirit world. He efficiently transported us to a steppe environment. You have 4 directions available for selection. Which one will you choose? He inquired, tilting his head to the side. After walking on the ground, I started to orient myself in each direction. I took several steps in each direction. South, I stated, indicating that direction with a gesture. What prompted you to choose this direction? He inquired, moving in closer. The west, east, and north evoked a sense of distance and unease. I responded thoughtfully, attempting to recollect all the sensations. That is what needed to be demonstrated, he stated with confidence. Your intuition alerted you to potential danger from many kilometers away. Only in the south were there no ancient dark spirits. Had you chosen any other direction, you would have certainly faced peril. For an additional hour, I found myself an unwilling participant in a battle of the benders. While locations and spirit positions shifted, I consistently opted for the most secure route. This is the final opportunity. Select a direction. It is peculiar, I remarked, as I find myself reluctant to proceed in any particular direction. The only somewhat feasible choice appears to be heading northwest. Excellent, he flapped his wings. This time, spirits were present on all sides. However, to the north and west lie ancient spirits who have yet to uncover their powers, still too young. Thus concluded the journey of unlocking the chakra. However, I committed to not depending on it completely, as each of our actions creates numerous new pathways as a bender. Northern Water Tribe. *** Chief's Palace Chambers of Princess Yui. In a well-appointed room decorated with an array of local animal furs, a scene recognizable to many young women was taking place. Katara and Yui, seated on a spacious bed, were engaged in a conversation, exchanging secrets. Katara, have you observed the way Sangok gazes at you? Yui inquired, narrowing her eyes with a hint of intrigue. Who is that? Katara inquired with genuine surprise. I am one of Master Paku's waterbending students, Yui stated, her disappointment evident in response to Katara's reaction. It appears that you are the only one who has not observed his longing glances and sighs. He does not align with my preferences. Katara dismissed her. What are your thoughts on Han's advances? As the elder's son and newly appointed commander of a special unit, he seems to be a suitable match. I must express that his clingy behavior is becoming increasingly bothersome, Yui stated, visibly frustrated. Next time, I will demonstrate some of my new waterbending techniques. I am just, she trailed off, stopping herself just in time. However, Katara, deeply attuned to her friend, who was almost like a sister, perceived that there was something personal left unexpressed. I will refrain from further comment, Yui asserted, shaking her head in acknowledgement of her error. It is late. Let us retire for the night. Come on, sisters should not withhold information from one another. Katara urged, her curiosity intensifying as Yui remained evasive. Very well, Yui sighed. You may have already inferred, I have a strong affection for Naruto. She expressed the final 3 words with her eyes firmly closed. Not in a fraternal sense? Katara inquired, her eyes widening in surprise. The situation is quite complex, Yui sighed. I view him not merely as my brother, but as the individual with whom I aspire to share my life, she expressed, feeling a sense of relief after articulating her feelings. I am at a loss for words, Katara stated with a hint of discomfort. I would like to share something as well. My mother indicated that she would not oppose our relationship with Naruto, provided that he does not have any objections. Additionally, this is contingent upon my not finding a partner of my own by that time. However, who could possibly be better than Naruto? She paused, contemplating whether to reveal that he had occupied a special place in her heart since his initial visit to their tribe at the South Pole. I was unaware that Aunt Kanna possessed such an open-minded perspective, Yui reflected. One hurdle has been removed. Indeed, this is a positive development. Thus, Katara's mother would not raise any objections. This is atypical. Katara attempted to choose a more impartial term. I suppose I would not have resisted either, had he been my brother, she acknowledged with a hint of shyness. However, your parents may not react positively. Additionally, it's important to consider the potential negative consequences. As a healer, you understand the implications this could have for your future child, she remarked with a more serious tone. Naruto is highly skilled in Kai blocking. I believe he could address the situation. Yui expressed her steadfast confidence in her brother. If that is not the case, then your children will have 2 mothers. So, Princess Yui, are you prepared to allow your brother to engage with other girls? Katara discerned the essence of the situation. It would be unreasonable to expect him to abandon others. Furthermore, I observe the way Aunt Kanna regards Naruto daily. We have shared the same household for nearly our entire lives. It is preferable for you to be involved rather than unfamiliar individuals. Yui expressed, her voice carrying a note of appreciation. She was unable to contain herself and laughed first. Thank you for your permission, Katara remarked with a hint of sarcasm, her hand discreetly grasping the edge of a pillow. Thank you. The gentle object was directed towards Yui's face. You initiated it, Yui responded, seizing a pillow in each hand and advancing forward. A significant number of boys from the North Pole would likely be eager to gain insight into this room at this moment. The young women, with sun-kissed skin, donned casual pajama shorts and relaxed tops, demonstrating their flexibility while subtly highlighting their evolving figures. Fire Lord's Palace. Princess Azula's quarters. Engaging discussions were occurring among the youth of the Fire Nation's upper class. Tai Li and Mai were granted the opportunity to train in firebending under the guidance of Princess Azula. Furthermore, this training would be significantly more effective, as the instructor's attention would be concentrated entirely on the 3 individuals rather than being divided among a larger class. At this moment, academic pursuits could be set aside. It was the sole vacation of the year, and the girls were determined to make the most of it. Please refrain from sighing, Mai, Azula remarked, her irritation evident. Before you know it, your Zuko will return, she remarked with a knowing smile. He does not belong to me, Mai responded softly, averting her gaze. Certainly, you may choose to deceive your friends, Azula remarked dismissively, waving her hand. It is evident how your demeanor shifts in his presence. The same observation applies to you in the presence of Teacher Wan, Mai remarked incisively. I will not conceal my feelings. There is no one but him who deserves to stand beside me, Azula stated with confidence. Perhaps he does not yet perceive me as a woman, but I will achieve my goals. Her confidence was unwavering. However, Mr. Wan has already established a close relationship with Lady Ursa. Mai bit her lip, opting to remain silent. Given the lack of complete understanding of the situation, it is premature to draw any conclusions. It may not have been a significant issue. The probability was minimal, yet she preferred to avoid causing any distress to her friend. That leaves you, Tai Li, Azula said, her golden eyes, a hallmark of the Fire Lords, fixed on her. Would you like me to demonstrate a new Kai blocking technique? Tai Li proposed, eager to display her skills. No, please share your preferences with us. Azula interjected, and Mai regarded her friend with intrigue. If I respond, Azula may not be pleased, Tai Li said quietly, bowing her head slightly. Why not? If it's Zuko, that is acceptable. Azula did not grasp the meaning of her words, but Mai appeared to comprehend it. I have a fondness for Wan, Tai Li remarked in a softer tone. Pardon? I didn't quite catch that, Azula remarked with a strained smile. I have a strong appreciation for Teacher Wan, Tai Li expressed enthusiastically. I understood correctly the first time, the princess remarked with composure, her expression taking on an unexpectedly formidable quality. Perhaps it was merely the effect of the lighting. It's acceptable. He will still select me. Azula held their friendship in high regard, just as she did with Tai Li, and was not prepared to express any harsh sentiments. Life in the palace had instilled in her a sense of self-discipline. That was a narrow escape, Tai Li and Mai thought in unison, feeling a sense of relief. Perhaps we could truly bond as sisters and share him, Tai Li proposed hesitantly, finding the notion increasingly appealing. Her biological sisters showed little interest in her, yet she consistently yearned for connection. We shall see, Azula responded succinctly. Could you please share your thoughts on my new concept? Do you believe it may come across as inappropriate? I am considering scenarios where my body would frequently come into contact with the teacher, she said, feeling a slight flush, as she had never engaged in anything like this before, nor had she ever envisioned herself doing so. Allow him to understand strategically that I am already an adult woman. I am unable to proceed with that, Mai stated, shaking her head. That's an excellent suggestion. I will implement it as well, Tai Li responded promptly. Please develop your own ideas. How complicated. As her friends formulated new strategies, Mai found herself puzzled by the shift in her thoughts from Zuko to Wan. Her friends were never able to comprehend the underlying cause of her sighs. Jun reclined on her bed, engrossed in a romance novel, anticipating Roku's return from his bath to their shared quarters in the Baifeng residence. It was late, and she yearned to be in the comforting presence of her partner. Soon, she heard rapid footsteps and Toph entered the room. Lao's daughter stuck her head in, listened carefully for any sounds, and then quietly closed the door. Jun observed her movements carefully, her raised eyebrow appearing to pose multiple questions. What are you doing here? Why so late? Why so quietly? Roku's still bathing, so I've got 10 to 15 minutes, Toph said slowly. Jun. How are you? What are you reading? She asked, flashing her finest smile. Get to the point, Jun responded, realizing Toph hadn't come for small conversation. Tell me, how can I win over Roku? Toph cut the charade and asked simply. You're asking me to help you win over my man? Jun was taken aback by the audacity and decided to pose the question again. Yeah, Toph shrugged. You already know I have feelings for him, but I never heard you explicitly forbid it. Little perceptive brat, Jun thought to herself. She was willing to put aside her pride and let other girls or women into their family, if they truly loved Roku. But he already has another woman on Kyoshi Island. She decided this wasn't the best plan after all. You don't need to rush. From what I've gathered, he likes mature women, miserable Roku and Naruto. Even their own spouses felt they had unusual tastes. In a few years, he'll notice you on his own. Then you can start your assault. Too long. Toph grimaced. She didn't mention that she'd been closely following Roku and Jun's games with her earthbending abilities. Every moment. At first, she switched off her talent, but after her first period, she began spying on them more frequently. The entire house was made of stone, which made it easy for her to navigate. The floor had merely a thin wooden covering that she couldn't sense with her skills. She'd been experimenting with her little hole for 2 months and couldn't sleep until she let go of the tension, seeing Roku penetrate Jun. She pictured herself in the former mercenary's position. Of course, she was filled by jealousy, but Roku and Jun were clearly pleased, so she couldn't bring herself to interfere. It wasn't her nature to be sneaky. Because of this, she began to dislike her own body. Her chest scarcely expanded, and her height had not increased significantly over the years. Will she always be simply his friend? Jun, seeing Toph's situation, decided to take the initiative. She had gone through puberty herself and was well aware of how emotions may spiral and simple thoughts could lead astray. Only Suki didn't let superfluous thoughts occupy her head, instead focusing on transforming her body into a combat weapon. Each day went the same way. Training with other Kyoshi warriors, learning earthbending, supporting her mother with chores, playing with Unagi's children, and assisting other villagers. Perhaps she didn't have time to consider such things. Deep down, she knew Roku would eventually join her. She wasn't sure where this confidence came from, but she believed it. Ba Sing Se. ****, a lengthy carriage slowly approached the capital city's lofty fortifications, which were impressive in their size. Looking at them, it felt like they were pressing down on your shoulders. Inside the carriage were 10 of the best warriors from King Bumi's personal guard, each proficient in earthbending. Just to see these walls, it's worth visiting Ba Sing Se, one of them exclaimed in amazement. About 100 meters tall and 30 meters wide, another voice said. They say the walls themselves contain entire houses and passages that allow the guards to move quickly and unnoticed along the entire perimeter. But here's my question. Will they definitely let us through the gates? Said another member of the group, who appeared drowsy. If you hadn't slept through our meetings, you'd know that General Hao, responsible for the city's overall defense, will turn a blind eye to our actions. He won't let General Sang, Longfang's man in charge of the outer wall's defense, notice us. Better prepare for a fight. Longfeng doesn't accept even average recruits into his police force. Every member of the Dai Li is either already a master earthbender or close to it, their leader added, interrupting the developing conversation. With all due respect, Commander, but I don't think they'll be a problem for us, said the youngest among them, shaking his head. His tone was consistent, and he adjusted his dropping glasses multiple times while speaking. From what I know, they've never been known for their large numbers. Besides this, 3 other squads are approaching Omashu from different routes. And let's not forget Mr. Lau's people, who aren't weak earthbenders either. My heart still feels heavy, the commander sighed. Everyone turned to him. It's worth noting that this experienced warrior had survived where so many others had died. His insights were fully trusted. Their actions in the old city trouble me. They've definitely prepared something sinister. The Baifeng family has already searched the entire underground space and found nothing. Perhaps we're worrying for nothing. Someone attempted to calm the anxious atmosphere in the carriage. Time will tell, the commander concluded, closing his eyes. Nobody else wanted to talk. They all shared an ephemeral feeling, as if they were heading straight toward their own graveyard. 1. Ba Sing Se. Lower ring. Here's the lower ring, my stop, I murmured, shuffling near the doors as the passengers in front of me departed. Looking around, I noticed the station's particular architectural style. Everything screamed Earth Kingdom. I learned from books that the monorail was created during the reign of King Yue Ming. He was generally described as a genius but an impatient ruler. He became tired of spending 2 days riding an animal from one end of the city to the other. So he directed his staff to invent something. Ba Sing Se alone has an area the size of an entire province. To get a sense of its immensity, imagine King Yue Ming's 2-day journey through it on horseback. Walking would easily increase or quadruple that time. Tonight, a coup would occur in the capital. I entered the train casually, changing my appearance somewhat. The Lao people were already waiting for the call to strike. They would be joined by Bumi's guards, who should have already passed through the gates. They were supposed to quickly sweep through all Dai Li bases and patrol zones. The orders were clear. If there was a significant threat to the squad's life, kill without hesitation. To be honest, it's unlikely that we'd be able to persuade any agent to speak. Their minds have definitely been brainwashed. My aim is the Dai Li's main base beneath Lake Laogai. I don't like to brag, but with my earthbending talents, I could tackle the entire Dai Li contingent if they were all in one location. There were still a few hours till the operation began, so I decided to examine the lives of ordinary people in the lower ring. I spotted several beggars as I wandered through the endless alleyways and alleys that reminded me of Hong Kong. Quite often, they were completely healthy. From overheard conversations, I discovered that there was just no job. I could figure out the majority of what was going on based on prior conversations. In brief, lower ring people service the entire city. A long-established structure is in play. All enterprises are run here by cunning people from the middle and upper rings. Brilliant. They can pay pennies or nothing at all. Their ties enable them to threaten residents with expulsion from the city. I used my earthbending skills to subtly hinder gang activity on several occasions. Clearly, there are plenty of them here. Gangs sometimes control entire districts. As a result, some small business owners must pay for protection twice per month. Where's the army looking? I shook my head at such lawlessness. Especially because 2 generals are stationed here. Something else bothered me. My heightened intuition wasn't screaming yet, but it was clearly warning of impending trouble. The closer the moment got, the more uneasy the situation became. Unsure of the situation, I mentally checked our strategy and discovered no errors or oversights. Well, in the worst-case scenario, I'll merge with my other bodies, I reasoned. No need to dwell on the negative conclusion. After checking the sun's position, I decided to go to the area and wait out the remaining time there. Soon, I was standing before a vast body of water, eyes closed, exploring the space below with my earthbending abilities. In my thoughts, I saw numerous rooms and tunnels. A complete labyrinth. The Dialy's primary base covered practically the entire lake. It's time, I said quietly, descending underground. I stood immediately beneath one of the catacomb rooms. I descended quickly underground. The room was empty save for some rusted shackles fastened to the wall, indicating that someone had once been confined there. Pushing aside the stone door, I sprang into a run. My Kai surged toward my eyes, allowing me to perceive the entire space. A classic villainous foundation. I thought. They must have hired the same architect as Shimura Danzo. Soon, the first Dialy agent appeared around the corner. They did, however, quickly fall unconscious. A fast-moving pebble thrown at their forehead makes it difficult to stay awake. Soon, more of Long Feng's minions emerged from other crevices. They sent me stone gauntlets, which disintegrated into harmless dust before reaching me. My power over earth particles had strengthened, allowing me to destroy their long-range weaponry before they could harm me. Of course, it depends on the enemy's bending ability and how much Kai they put into the attack, but there were no apparent monsters like King Boomy here. Not a second passed before another agent collapsed, unconscious or dead. There was no time for sentimentality. I attacked as I was attacked. Time to kick some earthbending ass. I attempted to encourage myself, but my intuition was not silent. By now, I'd learned to recognize some of its symptoms, and this time, there was no danger to my life. There was a risk of our plans failing or our people dying. Still, it's too late to change anything, I reasoned, kicking open a stone door to reveal a formidable earthbender. Mr. Roku, how can I help you? Asked a warm, reassuring voice. I soon spotted the speaker, who had shoved aside the door I had sent flying. A man stood in the midst of the little room, his conscience atrophied like that of any politician. Long Feng had a traditional Earth Kingdom countenance with only a few whiskers. He was essentially identical to the character from the animated series, with the exception of much crisper features, which affected the overall look. You know why I'm here, I said, advancing cautiously. Who knows what he may do? You must use caution while dealing with psychopaths who are preoccupied with power. Yes, I know very well, he said, raising his voice. A vein bulged at his temple, his face flushed, and his fingers trembled. Yuan Lao forced me to do this, he cried, pointing at me. You destroyed our peaceful city. Yes, you're to blame, not me. I won't even listen to your ravings, I said, now just meters away. It's too late, he said calmly. Very soon, Ba Sing Se will cease to exist, he said almost triumphantly, freezing me in mid-step. He certainly enjoyed his words. You probably know there's an entire underground city beneath the current capital. Its columns hold Ba Sing Se up. It would be quite tragic if someone destroyed them, he remarked, shaking his head. Tell me what you've done. I seized Long Feng's collar. Now, 141 explosives. That's how many load-bearing columns there are, and each contains one extremely powerful device that will bury this city. He laughed out loud. I ignored him and began intensely examining the region with my earthbending. My sensitivity allowed me to cover 30% of the lower ring. It was quite difficult to discover little things lodged in the walls. However, after some time, I found one from which a cord traveled into the wall. Mad bastard. Is he willing to kill hundreds of thousands? I scowled at Long Feng, who sat calmly and continued speaking. Time was running short. I needed to figure out how to deactivate the explosion. Want to take my city? If it's not mine, it won't be yours either, You thought you were so smart, didn't you? I learned of your approach the moment you descended, and with my seismic sensitivity, I immediately ordered my people to detonate. 4 minutes exactly, and boom! He spoke while I was preparing to question him. You can't stop it. There's no cancel command. I've already pressed the button. Scum. I thought, punching him out. He had no incentive to lie, so I had to figure out a way to save the city. Think. I may disrupt the wires, preventing them from detonating. However, my sensitivity is limited to only a portion of the city. But with earthbending, I could try to increase the range. Without hesitation, I began working. I tuned into the Earth's waves and modified my vibrations to meet them. The idea worked. With each passing instant, I felt more of the space. I soon had the entire city under watch. Next, I looked for explosives and damaged the connection nodes. Sweating burst out on my forehead. The concentration was intense. I needed to constantly adjust to the waves and see the projected image in my head. But the most difficult element was controlling the Earth over such a long distance. Yes, destroying a channel took only a slight nudge of the rock. But I'd have to manufacture 141 nudges. I started with the lower ring and progressed to the middle ring. A mental clock ticked, roughly leading me through the remaining time. The upper ring was 70% cleared when a huge explosion shook the Earth. Only 3 minutes since I descended. I kicked the unconscious body and cursed loudly. Technically, I'd spared the majority of the city, but I could have checked underground earlier to see what the Dai Li were up to. I had not considered Lao's lack of seismic sensitivity because I trusted their people. The worst part was that I had not disarmed the king's palace or several streets. There had not been time. My brain had simply driven me to the nearest explosives. Knowing King Kuei's character, I might have easily persuaded him to personally hand over the throne to Lao. There would be more red tape. Still, this world is changing me faster than I'm changing it. I was more concerned about planning than saving lives. I hope I don't become like one of these scumbags in the future. I gazed at the Dai Li leader at my feet. After the stretched Kai channels had calmed, I decided to revisit the collapse site. A big crowd had already gathered. After all, this was no ordinary occasion. It appeared that there were still numerous survivors trapped beneath the wreckage. It was a relief. The iron door served as a temporary cell for Long Feng. I completely enveloped his body, leaving only the area around his nose and mouth open for respiration. With Laos still to arrive, I took the opportunity to study the convicts housed here. When I surveyed the catacombs earlier, I detected a large number of hostages. I soon found myself standing in front of the first door, behind which a living person was caged. I had to help some agents rest along the road because they had inconveniently begun recovering awareness. The room was dark and hardly lighted. Near one wall sat an emaciated man of unknown age. His thick hair masked any indication of his precise age. There is no war. Ba Sing Se is the safest and most prosperous city. There is no war, he said monotonously, swaying back and forth like a broken record. How are you? I approached, hoping to rouse him. But he didn't respond to my hands and nudges. Probably one of the brave ones, or fools who spoke the truth openly, I said. This man certainly required a good therapist, but I'm not one. The next 5 cells were almost identical. The prisoners vary, but their words were variations on a common subject. It wasn't until the 6th room that I discovered someone lucid. You're not from the Dai Li, he cried, his face tight with dread. Despite his ragged clothing, he carried himself like an academic. Perhaps he was already hysterical. Did you feel those tremors? It's all my fault. He grasped his greasy hair with sorrow on his face. I managed to prevent nearly 90% of the intended damage, I replied, resting my hand on his shoulder. Tell me, why do you blame yourself? I pressed. Yes, the tremors should have been far stronger, he said before meeting my gaze. If it's truly you, thank you on behalf of the Earth Kingdom, he said, bowing deeply. I made those bombs for them, he confessed, his head dropped and unwilling to face my gaze. It seems you had no choice, I said. He didn't strike me as a skilled enough actor to portray such shame. Thank you for understanding, he murmured, his eyes welling up. You're right. My name is Yubumi. I was once a university professor, working on explosive mixtures as a side project. I shouldn't have discussed it with colleagues. Maybe one of them reported me, according to him. He was immediately charged as a traitor, accused of preparing to blow up the Earth King's palace. In reality, he had simply been captivated by the issue. That same day, he He was brought here and given a difficult choice. Make bombs for them or sentence his family to a terrible end. To assuage his guilt, they said the bombs were intended to counter the Fire Nation. But knowing the Dai Li, he questioned that, even if he had no choice but to comply. I hope to atone for my actions, he said, finally spotting the restrained Long Feng. He deserves it. That's the true face of the enemy. Yubumi kicked Long Feng's cell. But, ouch! He hopped on one foot and rubbed the other. Iron proved to be stronger than flesh. In the next cell, we met another coherent prisoner. An older man with gray hair sat reading, his eyes quickly scanning us as if noting things. A healer of souls? Yubumi recognized him. You were here too? For many years, the man said calmly and detachedly. And you? After a brief introduction, the three of us began. The so-called healer of souls was reluctant to tell his narrative. Fortunately, Yubumi, anxious to talk, whispered information about the old man. Residents of Ba Sing Se gave him the nickname, Healer of Souls. According to my understanding, he was a psychotherapist who specialized in restoring mental balance. Even the university's former rector attempted to create a new faculty for him, eager to hire such a distinctive figure. But he always declined respectfully, claiming that his manuscripts, soon to be books, would educate far more people. Then, one day, he disappeared. I didn't vanish, the elderly guy stated firmly, silencing us. We had either spoken too loudly or his hearing was excellent. Like many, I was abducted from my home. Long Feng excels at exploiting weaknesses, and he's even better at finding ways to pressure you. His voice drifted off, possibly recalling sad memories. He quickly forced me to develop mind control methods. The result? Hundreds with shattered minds, all for one system. I no longer wish to practice. I never met him personally, but acquaintances described him as kind and gentle, Yubumi said, her voice becoming even softer. He was clearly broken. Later, we met several members of the Baifeng family. They had been Lao's eyes and ears for the past 6 months, preparing for this operation. They appeared marginally better than the previous captives, but their scars and nervous manner screamed volumes. Half an hour later, Bumi's entourage arrived with excellent news. Above ground, everything had gone exactly as planned. Casualties were low. I hurried to Lao, accompanied by Long Feng, the Dai Li chief. The chaos's mastermind would be useful, someone to lay all the blame on. City guards put up barriers around the area near the palace. Our soldiers saw me right away and led me into the site of the collapse. The number of deaths wasn't as terrible as expected because many residents possessed strong earthbenders who protected their masters. I soon saw Lao himself, together with Earth King Kuei. I hurried up and got there just in time to hear an interesting story. Kuei hugged his bear dressed like a person and said, "It's all thanks to Bosco. These past months, he's often dragged me beyond the outer walls. But today, he was unusually restless, pacing endlessly. He insisted we stroll through the middle ring." That made sense. I'd heard that animals are better at sensing crises than people are. His furry friend had kept him alive. It seems like fate didn't want Kuei to die. To be honest, the king wasn't to blame. Long Feng reared him from the time he was 4 years old, turning him into a puppet who didn't care about anything. "Guys," I said. I brought Long Feng. I pushed the iron tomb with the living man inside it forward. Kuei groaned and looked at him with deep disappointment. I still can't believe Uncle Long Feng could be so evil. Long Feng had taken his father's place in a way. Lao remarked in a serious tone, "Sadly, it's true. He would have given up the whole city to stay in power." I had heard that rescuers had uncovered signs of the explosion and were already taking Long Feng's other gifts from the walls. They did their jobs well. I found a lot of prisoners at the main base who can confirm his crimes. Kuei said, "What now? The country is at war, and I don't know where to start." Just yesterday, everything was so easy. Bosco hugged him right away to show his support. "The people will be angry when they find out the truth," Lao added, taking advantage of the moment. "The best thing for you to do is give up the throne voluntarily to someone who can handle this heavy load during these tough times." "But who wants to take on such a big job?" Kuei didn't even say anything against it. "Lord Lao." He stopped and thought for a long time. "I've even heard rumors about how quickly Gao Lin province is growing. Your skills meet all the requirements. Please, help our people through these hard times," Kuei begged, taking off his crown-like headdress, which was a sign of his power, and giving it to Lao. Lao continued, "I care deeply about the people of the Earth Kingdom, just like you do, and I can't ignore this chaos. He looked Kuei in the eye as he took the headpiece. Let's finish the paperwork quickly so that nothing gets in the way of what we want to do, he said. This was much easier than I thought it would be. Kuei didn't know anything about politics, did he? Lao gave a number of orders while the papers were being prepared. First, arrest General Sang and keep a tight eye on General Hao. Hao had turned a blind eye to what was going on in the capital, after all. There was indirect guilt. Second, get information from all the criminal gangs that are still functioning. We need to find out who their upper ring patrons are. We couldn't let them rest. We had to get rid of the corrupt aristocrats now or tomorrow. In short, the whole upper ring had danced to Long Feng's melody, some on their own and some against their will. We had to figure out who was on which list. Before the sun went down, all the formalities were finished. There was only a small public announcement left. The transfer of the throne would take place in the middle ring, where all the gates would be open so that everyone in the lower ring could see the legal and voluntary change. A wide range of people came together, eager but unsure. A lot of people still didn't know how their city's fate had changed in just a few hours. Everyone's attention quickly shifted to a tiny hill where Lao and King Kuei were standing. I, the 52nd Earth King, must admit that I am not able to lead our nation today, Kuei said. For years, our people have faced Fire Nation attacks. Many people in the middle ring were astonished to learn about the conflict that had been going on for decades. I didn't understand what was going on, so I left all the other provinces to take care of themselves. Lao stepped forward and stated, the king misspoke. Many now know the real person behind the false information, he said, as Long Feng was taken on stage, ignoring the crowd's shouts and closing his eyes. There's no need to list all of his crimes, just know that he'll pay for everything. The crowd cheered. After then, the usual coronation ceremony took place. The future king promised to defend his people, follow the law, and so on. He put on the Hanfu robe and headdress at the conclusion. Long live the new king, one voice shouted, and then others joined in. I thought, that outfit looks good on him. Kuei didn't even come close to him. I should go away for a week or two while Lao takes care of the paperwork. Here's the new version with magic and fantasy words changed to words from Avatar: The Last Airbender, but the main premise stays the same. The day following Lao's coronation, word came in from the borderlands. The spies from the Fire Nation were busy. As we thought, their soldiers had tried to move forward, assuming that the disarray in the capital would make the Earth Kingdom's army weaker. After a few attacks, they understood that the army was still ready for battle and that they couldn't just rush into the country. In the end, I couldn't get away from the never-ending red tape. Lao knew me too well to allow me go away. In less than a week, the Earthbending Masters had reconstructed the Earth King's palace to look almost exactly like it did before. They were able to do this because they already had the blueprints and drawings for the old building. To save time, they chose to build it precisely as it was. The administration moved to one of the homes in the upper ring while the building was going on. For a while, I had to be a living lie detector, figuring out which high-ranking commanders and aristocrats were in favor of Long Feng's policies. My family has been a pillar of the Earth Kingdom for centuries. I'm outraged by what that scoundrel did behind our backs, said another clear patriot of his country. You couldn't take away the local aristocracy, ability to speak and act. They would be better off performing in theaters. When Lao looked at me with a confused look, I quietly shook my head. Lao's trusted men quickly took our loudmouth away. This is crazy. You can't do this, he yelled. Don't get my clothes dirty with your dirty hands, he said, looking for more things to complain about. Are you sure about him? We didn't even get to ask him any questions, Lao said when we finally had a moment to talk. There was already proof in his house that he was working with the leader of the Dai Li. On top of that, he ran a third of all shadow businesses, which is the worst part of it, I said, my face getting a little darker. It was hard to understand how someone could be so nasty to their own people at times. During the day, I helped Lao with the city's elite, while at night, I worked to figure out how local gangs were connected. They were the main sources of information. Any movements toward the former king? The inquiry was not a little one. A lot of rich people didn't like the changes that were coming, so they were ready to become fighters for justice, saying that Lao Baifeng had taken power by force and left the real King Kuei behind. Lao responded, there's no way to avoid it. But recently, I leaked official papers that Kuei signed on purpose, he said, narrowing his gaze in a sly way. I believe that there should be fewer fighters presently. King Kui, his distant cousins, and his future offspring and grandchildren can't get involved in politics, thus they won't have any power. We didn't take everything from him, though. He'll get a lot of money for the good things his forefathers, the prior kings, did. It will be enough to support a big town. But should we expect him to know anything about money? We were also curious about this, so Lao and I asked him straight. I don't even know. Whatever I wanted, the servants or Long Feng always gave it to me, he said, appearing uncomfortable. Lao told one of his counselors to help Kui keep track of his money. After all, it may be put to good use and make money in the future. Kui's first step was to put his money into a zoo. It's important to remember that he had never been outside of the upper and middle rings previously. Long Feng had told him that the lower ring was a safe place for wicked people, so he thought it was. So, for the first time among regular people, he grew disillusioned with his old senior advisor again. There, he found a zoo that used to be very popular. But what he saw was sad. Small cages, crowded spaces, and creatures that were bored. Maybe genes play a role in our lives, for even Lao, the advisor who was supposed to help Kui, was astonished by what he did. He instantly became friends with Kenji, the zoo's caretaker. The zoo's land was sold on the same day. The money was utilized to buy land in the agricultural zone, which is many times bigger than the last region. The agricultural zone has the cheapest land, followed by the lower ring, middle ring, and upper ring. I don't know if it's true or not. I heard everything from the advisor's own words. Kui spoke to each of the animals before relocating them. Yes, I just talked. It looks like he told them to be good because they will soon have a much nicer home. They walked through the lower ring streets without even trying to get away, which is ridiculous. Aang has to catch them all in the Avatar series. His second big idea was to make it such that the tourists, not the animals, would have less space. He made enclosed paths for visitors to wander along and see the animals, as he had planned. An aquarium-like place where the fish can swim around freely. Is it worth mentioning that the idea worked out? This is especially true because several of these creatures are no longer found in the wild. I wanted to see them for myself. I might never see them again. Also, I love the animals that live here. My love for them started with the first encyclopedia I read at the North Pole. The first animal I saw was an elephant mandrill. It was a big four-legged animal that looked like a mandrill monkey but was about the same size as an elephant on Earth. It had the same, colorful, face, brown fur, and strange feet that looked like an elephant's with a sole and 3 toes. There were a lot of kangaroo rabbits here. These animals looked like rabbits with long, flexible ears and a face, but they possessed the body of a kangaroo, with a pouch on their belly. Rabbit kangaroos were as tall as a grown person and could carry a few babies in their pouch. These creatures mostly live on the plains of the Earth Kingdom and don't like being in small confines. The armadillo lion was playing in its own area. It has the segmented shell of an armadillo covering its whole back and the head and legs of a lion. Even though it's big, it's shy and curls up into a ball when it's in danger. I had already seen the other animals at the zoo. There were antelope bulls, platypus bears, pig monkeys, turtle seals, and flying dragon chicks. I believe it was worth the time to go to this area. People thought it was strange to see a joyful former king collecting tickets at the door with a smile. The treasury was another problem for us. You'd think that a capital city would make a lot of money, but Ba Sing Se was only making as much money as a poor province. Lao had to give several of his business branches to the government. We were losing money quickly, tax payments were not clear, and the city required new infrastructure right away. People were tearing down homes in the upper ring to make room for buildings that could hold more people. Strictly speaking, only roughly 5% of the population lived in the upper ring, while 60% lived in the lower ring. People started to quickly rebuild the underground metropolis, adding additional train lines. In a way, they were building the first subway in this world. There were supposed to be marketplaces at each station, which would make the lower ring a lot more open. Lao and I used the spirit healer's methods to change our minds. We both knew we were playing with fire, but we also knew a lot about how people act. So, we made the decision to keep doing study in this field, even though we didn't want to. The idea is to make this procedure less harsh. Plans call for all officials and high-ranking personnel to go through more training with a program that teaches them to be loyal to the country. There was still a lot to do, but I felt better knowing that the Fire Nation was the only thing in front of me. Tribe of Northern Water. Naruto. Number 20 and 146, enter the arena, the judge yelled. I chose to go to the ranked bending combat in the capital again today. They've been going on for 2 years now, I had a lot of other things to do, so I just went once, at the beginning. It looks like they are already popular with the public, and a lot of them like watching the elemental bending show. It's so strange to be at the very top. Of course, the chief had the greatest seat, which showed off his rank brilliantly. I could see Arnuk and Jun below me, with Kaya next to them. It's time for us to get married. Everyone already knew who warmed the young chief's bed, but Kaya couldn't sit on the same level as me until our marriage was official. The people are making quick progress, I thought as I watched a girl and a boy fight. Even though they were just students, they showed a lot of expertise about different methodologies. I wonder who their students are. I could see how proud Hama appeared at the arena when I looked at the masters' faces. Haku stood next to her, calm, and watched the scene just as closely. I thought, it looks like Hama has completely thawed. She has already started teaching students. That's fantastic. Maybe Zhang will get a break. Parents are proud of their kids' bending rankings in general. Everyone can see the names of the top 10 in the city center, after all. People are more motivated to practice because those who are in first position don't want to lose their fame, and new people want to take a piece of the pie. But there isn't as much going on in the master's ranks. People over 50 just don't care about calculating out numbers. They already know who is better at what. This probably won't last long. Katara and Yui are now in the middle ranks and will soon be in the top 10, which will shake things up. I'm not going to stop growing either. I go to the healing huts a lot when there are strange instances. I try to learn how to use cold weapons and different martial arts as much as I can. And I always remember to work on my own element. My Kai just recently made a little, apparently unimportant leap into the first stage of the highest level. Reality has taught me once more how slowly I would have grown if I couldn't absorb spirit particles. After I reach the highest level in airbending, I'll eat evil spirits on purpose to move the other elements along. Yo can already feel his Kai cracking. He just needs a little push to make a big change. I guess I'll ask Wan Shi Tong to show him an ancient or higher air ghost. I didn't realize that all the conflicts that were supposed to happen today had already concluded since I was lost in thinking. They were hoping for a short, motivating speech from me. I want to point out that the average skill level has reached a qualitatively new level. Congratulations to the winners. And to the losers, don't hang your heads, prepare, don't be lazy, and train hard. Because each of you is worthy of being first. All those motivational videos from my past life weren't for nothing. The top positions can also ask other teachers for personal tuition, and the master must give their all. Some of the master's preferences or gifts haven't been made yet. They already have all they need, but I think I'll offer them a way to feel young again. Who wouldn't want to get rid of old problems? Kai is telling me more and more about itself. I just learned one of them. Kai can't renew the body forever. Yes, you can light the flame of life for a long time, but not forever. Physiology gets in the way. You can't stop cells from aging. I don't add immortality when I infuse Kai. I only get rid of other things that speed up the body's wear and tear. I've set a restriction of 170 years, but I can add or take away 20 years if I can find at least 5 of a person's relatives. Not a lot, but at least something. At first, I thought I had found my philosopher's stone. Another morning in the House of Knowledge was intended to start with the regular cuddles with Drea, who doesn't need as much sleep as I do. Because of this, I often wake up to her gorgeous face looking at me, and it's still as charming as ever. The weirdness started as soon as I opened my eyes. I didn't see the usual sight in my peripheral vision when I looked up at the ceiling. I searched the right side of the bed but couldn't discover my loved one's body. I just saw something near the bed when I sat up a little bit. A big, unopened green bud. I thought, maybe Drea made something new. And brushed it off as one of her spirit tricks. I wanted to stay in bed a bit longer. When I rolled over, I noticed Van Shi Tong sitting on the ceiling. "Good morning, Naruto," he said in a calm voice. "Morning," I said without thinking, staring at him with more and more perplexity. "Are you attempting to act like bats now?" I wanted to say, "What are you doing here?" But I stopped myself. It's his library, thus I'm the guest. At the start of a fresh day, I didn't want to destroy my mood. "No, I'm observing Drea's creation," he said, pointing to the blossom. "It looks like new life is developing inside." He trailed off in wonder. "I need another waterbender to get exact results." "What?" I blinked. "You mean becoming pregnant?" I almost jumped out of bed, my eyes going back and forth between Van Shi Tong and the flower that wasn't open yet. "Yes," he finally swooped down. The first time a new sentient entity was formed from the mating of a human and a spirit, he sounded almost happy. "I'm going to be a dad," I said, feeling a lot of different things at once. I was happy, but I couldn't stop thinking about how big of a job it was. Was I ready for this? What am I thinking about? There are much more important things to worry about. Is she all right? I whispered because I was worried that loud noises would hurt Drea or our unborn child. "Seems stable," he said, "not sure. I can't promise that my work won't have an effect on them," he said as he expanded his wings. "So I've been going with my gut. She smells like Drea." I leaned very close to the bud's big green leaves, which were its outer shell. I couldn't hear anything when I pressed my ear near it. "Yo, calm down. She isn't a person, hence she doesn't have a heartbeat. Gaia could have some information about this. She has a lot more experience than Drea. It would be very helpful if she could help. I've already sent my assistant to get her. They will be here soon." "Don't freak out," Van Shi Tong replied softly. "Listen to your heart and what your gut tells you." "Right, I forgot." I took a long breath and tried to hear what my inner voice was saying. Nothing. But that's exactly what I wanted. It meant that there was probably no threat. "I believe everything is fine. You don't even want to know how this happened?" he abruptly inquired. "He talks a lot today. Or is he just trying to keep me from thinking about things that don't matter? If so, I have to admit that I still don't know anything about his character." Surprised in a good way. "Do you have any predictions?" I was sincerely interested. There is a measure in place to prevent premature, well, you understand. My partner is a spirit. Books explicitly indicate that they do not reproduce in the same manner as humans. It is straightforward. All bodily fluids contain traces of your Kai. During intimacy, there is a dynamic exchange of energy between you. At times, a concentrated accumulation of your energy entered her body, and over time, it gathered and began to form new life, he articulated with elegance. To my knowledge, that is indeed one method by which spirits are created, correct? I had encountered it in the writings of Van Shi Tong himself. Two spirits drawn to one another have the potential to generate a new spirit through the exchange of Kai. Although this process may require several years, particularly if they belong to different elements. That is the reason why the majority of spirits are categorized within the primary quartet. New spirits can also arise through natural formation in areas abundant in Kai. I appreciated the location I explored during the solstice. In that location, multiple volcanoes gave rise to similar firebenders. There was an additional source of new spirits, yet I did not completely understand the underlying principle. What occurs to the Kai that remains after the death of conquerors? The records indicated that information. That is an excellent inquiry. The majority attempts to access the spirit world, while the remainder disperses throughout the human realm. The primary factor contributing to the decline in Kai saturation within the human realm is identified. Conquerors accumulate Kai over the course of their lives, and upon passing, it is expected to return to the human realm. However, the initial Avatar and Rava divided the world into two, establishing an unusual barrier that draws this Kai to the opposite side. In a well-structured world, formidable creatures and conquerors of equal strength to ancient spirits ought to inhabit our territories? That is difficult to accept. That was indeed the case, he acknowledged with a nod. Thousands of years ago, nearly every individual possessed bending abilities. I have observed individuals experiencing a decline in their capabilities, however, is that truly detrimental? He inquired and subsequently provided his own answer. Ultimately, the creation of numerous intricate mechanisms and innovations would not have been possible without your efforts. In a certain sense, I find myself feeling appreciative, however, had circumstances been different, we could have convened and confronted any disagreeable entities. A thought crossed my mind. He turned toward the door, acknowledging their arrival. At that moment, Gaia entered the room, accompanied by a fox's head that was visible behind her. The nature spirit approached Drea with swift hoof beats, seemingly attuned to an unseen presence. Her concerned expression gradually transitioned into a more composed one. She is well. Gaia did not cause us any delays. As I anticipated, Drea will soon be welcoming a child, she mentioned. Did I perceive correctly, or did she express a tone of envy? Were there indications? I inquired, concentrating on her statements. Yes, in our previous meeting, I started to notice a dual heartbeat from Drea. She responded and then subsequently greeted everyone. I detect remnants of dark Kai, Van Shi Tong remarked suddenly. Is that the reason for your tardiness? He directed his attention to his assistant. The fox confirmed that dark spirits had attacked the forest just before our departure. I have just now observed a familiar scent, reminiscent of what I had encountered with the fire sages. I fear this may not be their final assault, Gaia sighed. The affected lands have reached our home. There will only be an increase in their presence. It is important to recognize that spirits affected by Vadu's Kai become carriers of this disease. In areas where they reside for extended durations, the land itself begins to transform, aligning with their Kai. No benevolent spirit can emerge from that place. It resembles the devastation I witnessed in Warcraft, where the scourge corrupted the land. The news is unfavorable. The presence of dark spirits tends to increase over time. Additionally, they consistently engage in conflicts with one another, acquiring experience and facilitating the entry of even more formidable spirits into the realm. Gaia, I request that you remain with Drea for the time being, I stated earnestly, meeting her gaze. It is advantageous to have an additional nature spirit accompanying her. I intended to remain regardless, she responded with a gentle shake of her head, accompanied by a radiant smile. During the initial days, I remained closely by Drea's side. I often inquired with Gaia regarding her condition, which caused her considerable irritation. I overlooked the fact that time progresses differently for spirits. From her viewpoint, it likely appeared as though I was monitoring the situation constantly. My heightened focus eventually diminished. I came to understand that everything appeared to be in order, and my actions were the only source of concern for others. Exact timelines could not be provided by anyone. I chose to engage my mind with an alternative focus. The Fire Nation had started to overlook my experiences with Drea. It was time to reassess the islands. In the absence of my nymph's abilities, the task would present a greater level of difficulty. As I was preparing for sleep, a thought came to mind: why not consider attempting plant bending myself? I have made previous attempts, but when exactly did that occur? It appears that I may finally have the opportunity to accomplish something significant. I remained awake that night. I commenced my exploration of plant bending techniques. I experimented with different proportions of water and earth Kai, but ultimately resulted in only mud. At times, the water may appear unclear and contaminated. Upon completing all two-element combinations, I incorporated life Kai. Ultimately, there was no sign of mud at all. It seemed as though I had regressed significantly. However, my intuition indicated a different perspective. Gaia's guidance was proving ineffective. Their bending functions are based on fundamentally distinct principles. Their source exclusively produces pure nature Kai, free from earth, water, or life Kai. I had to depend on experimentation and adjustment. After numerous efforts, I have finally observed progress. As is frequently the case, it transpired spontaneously and without prior planning. Gaia experienced discomfort in an environment dominated by a collection of rocks, devoid of any vegetation. She requested that I locate seeds from the plants of this world, as her own would not thrive here due to the insufficient Kai. Upon acquiring the necessary items, I overlooked the new pots that had been placed in my new room. Gaia has probably chosen to enhance the environmental appeal of this room as well. The previous room was consistently inhabited by Gaia, who monitored Drea's circumstances. Over time, I observed that the pots had become inadequate for the plants, as they had experienced considerable growth. I might have overlooked it had it not been for a discussion. I was surprised to see them sprout. Gaia entered my room and immediately observed the plants. She also experiences boredom, which leads us to frequently engage in conversations or play games together. What seems to be the issue with them? They appear to be ordinary plants. 2 weeks ago, I requested that you place some additional soil and dead seeds in a designated area, she stated. I do not recall that. I found myself pondering the matter. It appears that during that time, you were occupied with the process of creating a certain type of mud, she remarked. I now remember. I was likely preoccupied with my thoughts, as is often the case. It appears that you did not come to collect them. I have relocated them to your room. Gaia exhibits a distinct preference for soil and all types of plants, including those that are no longer alive. She found it difficult to discard them into the desert sands. What is the reason for the demise? Their health is evident, showcased by a vibrant green hue. Is it not possible to restore their life? That is unusual for a nature spirit. My energy is, how should I put it, perhaps a bit overwhelming for them, she said, placing a finger on her lips. Please cease your actions. At this pace, you may find yourself imagining her as well. I did not intend to cause them distress. She explained that my Kai would have torn them apart. Your perspectives on nature differ significantly from Drea's. My approach could efficiently eliminate numerous plants of the same species to assimilate certain characteristics. I find myself in a state of confusion. What factors contributed to their growth? I found my thoughts attempting to keep pace, yet I consistently outpaced them. This room possesses a peculiar life energy, Gaia remarked thoughtfully. It is substantial and intriguing, perhaps human. She directed her attention towards me, inhaling the air with a keen sense, reminiscent of Drea. This energy originates from within you. It has a pleasant aroma, she said quietly, looking away. I am not slow. I simply take my time to get started. I reminded myself as I reflected on Gaia's words. Are there any additional seeds available? Indeed, she provided me with a seed. Please handle it with care, as it is sensitive to excessive pressure. Understood. I removed some soil from the pot and positioned the seed within. At this point, incorporate 30% water Kai and add an equivalent amount of earth Kai. Subsequently, combine 40% life energy thoroughly and direct it through my hands. An event is occurring. After a minute, a small sprout emerged. Typically, plants do not exhibit such rapid growth. I am now Hashirama Senju. Congratulations on your achievement. Gaia applauded, having observed the process with great attention. Thank you very much. I embraced her. Your guidance has been invaluable. You're welcome, she replied, her tail moving gracefully behind her. I still need to comprehend the boundaries of this new element, but I cannot generate something from nothing. I require either seeds or a pre-existing plant. A new day commenced with me refining my plant bending skills. I aim to achieve measurable outcomes in this skill promptly. I have successfully enhanced plant growth and am capable of cultivating new branches from trees, albeit gradually, which can serve defensive or offensive purposes. The issue at hand necessitates a high level of focus and considerable energy. Could someone please allow me a moment or two to execute a maneuver? I am not Hashirama, who can accomplish this with ease. I have come to understand that in the years ahead, I will not be able to master techniques as swiftly as Drea can. I have chosen to concentrate on a more pragmatic aspect of this element, surveillance. I began by developing my ability to listen attentively. The challenges commenced from the outset. Before that point, I had not experimented with attributing any undocumented properties to plants. I had to invest significant effort to address my knowledge gaps, essentially deconstructing and reconstructing the plant. To minimize the expenditure of energy in each instance, I meticulously analyzed the entire process. Subsequently, another challenging moment arose. The plants Drea cultivated were akin to extensions of her being, allowing her to perceive sounds directly within her mind through her auditory senses. I had to develop large headphones, which significantly depleted my resources. To transmit sound from the ear to the headphones, I had to replicate the setup numerous times. Ultimately, my efforts resulted in a disappointing replication of Drea's capabilities. Initially, it was necessary to connect my headphones to my ear. This required me to remain near the ear, as the wire linking the two plants was observable. Secondly, it bore no resemblance to Drea's miniature ear. While I wouldn't describe it as unattractive, it certainly made a strong impression. I needed to select its location with great care. The process proved to be challenging and required considerable time, leading me to the decision to wait for Drea. Her assistance would certainly enable me to broaden my skill set. Additionally, Naruto and Roku were engaged in their own matters. They would not be absent for an extended period. Roku promptly traveled to Omashu to seek knowledge from Bumi. Ultimately, he chose to govern the city-state temporarily before establishing his reign in Ba Sing Se. Naruto was diligently preparing for his wedding. It was the appropriate moment for him to formally designate Kaya as his wife. I have returned to the library. The solstice was approaching, and I needed to consult Wan Shi Tong regarding the air spirits he was familiar with. The solstice day. The great master of air currents has been notified of the arrival of a temporary student, stated Wan Shi Tong before facilitating my transition to another world. However, one must consider the title of Great Master of Air Currents seriously. Does he have a shorter name or a nickname? I asked. No, and you should refer to him as such, he cautioned, or he may take offense. I prefer to avoid antagonizing ancient spirits. How is Drea? Is everything all right? I inquired of Gaia, who had also come to see me off. The situation is stable, however, the room is filled with overgrown greenery, she responded. Recently, the increase of natural energy emanating from the bud has intensified. It was essentially a process of channeling Wan Shi Tong's Kai, transforming it to align with its own needs. Shortly, an energy wave traversed the globe, indicating the weakening of the barrier. In that very moment, the essence of knowledge guided me towards his associate. A robust wind welcomed me, sweeping across the plains. If I were less heavy, I would certainly have been able to take flight. Upon closer inspection, I observed a crane positioned nearby. The individual donned uncomplicated blue trousers and a straw hat that remained securely in place despite the forceful wind. It was adorned with large golden rings on its legs. The crane exhibited behaviors reminiscent of those typically associated with a common magpie. However, the kai that occasionally emanated from its body clearly indicated that it was an ancient and formidable spirit. Greetings, esteemed master of air currents. I attempted to convey sincere respect, suppressing a multitude of unrefined jokes. "Oh, you are the individual the great spirit of knowledge spoke of," he acknowledged with a measured nod. "With my training, a promising future awaits you." It appears he enjoys incorporating the word promising frequently, doesn't he? "We have limited time. Demonstrate your skills in the great conquest of air." If you omit one particular term, the dialogue appears quite standard. Subsequently, I commenced showcasing my abilities. The conditions were somewhat more challenging in this environment due to the air currents that frequently changed direction nearly every second. After 5 minutes, I regained my composure and awaited the spirit's words. "Excellent execution. There was minimal kai loss," the crane remarked with a more serious tone, omitting that particular term. "Unfortunately, you were unable to hear the wind," he remarked, shaking his head. "I observed your efforts to adjust your techniques in response to the wind's gusts. However, the results were not consistently effective," he remarked. "Adapting to such unpredictable winds proved to be quite challenging. Observe," he proceeded, subtly adjusting his wing to generate a gentle breeze that swiftly blended with the surrounding currents. Shortly thereafter, one of the currents elevated a substantial boulder from the earth, propelling it through the air. I did not attempt to resist the air. Instead, I appreciated it, as it enabled me to preserve my energy. A comparable occurrence took place with the vibrations of Earth, I reflected. In that environment, I needed to adjust to the waves, harnessing their energy. However, the situation is complex due to the unpredictable nature of air currents, making it difficult to anticipate the direction of the wind. "I believe I comprehend," I conveyed to the spirit. "Perhaps we should consider changing locations to a place where the wind consistently blows in one direction. This would certainly simplify matters. You are already aware of how to leverage one current to your advantage. However, will there be any growth if you continue to repeat the same actions?" he asked rationally. "We still have time. Please take a moment to listen to the wind," he concluded, adjusting his hat slightly. "I will refrain from elaborating on my efforts to hear the wind. I will simply state the outcome. It was unsuccessful. I must explore alternative options. Continuing on this path is unproductive." "Is there an alternative?" I inquired of the crane spirit, who had remained still like a statue throughout the conversation. "Certainly, there is," he stated, adjusting his hat and shaking his entire body. "However, it entails considerable risk to life. Wan Shi Tong mentioned that you possess considerable resilience. You will likely endure," he added. "I have reservations about this idea already. To be candid, I anticipated that we would not accomplish much in such a limited time frame," he stated as he began walking west, with me following closely behind. "Many dedicate years to perfecting this skill. This is the reason I selected this location for my training. It is here that the chasm of two worlds can be found." Upon traversing a distance of several dozen meters, we paused at a substantial depression in the earth. The base was obscured, engulfed by complete darkness. The scattered crystals on the walls, emitting a faint green glow, were insufficient to illuminate the space adequately. There are intriguing legends surrounding this location. It is said that if one were to fall in, they might find themselves on the opposite side of the globe. While this remains a myth, I have personally experienced the descent. I cannot specify the exact duration of my fall, but it was approximately 2 to 3 minutes. Upon further observation, I detected a subtle breeze emanating from below. "Are you prepared to draw nearer to the wind?" he inquired, with a sense of anticipation. "I suppose that is the case," I responded, stepping back slightly. "Then embrace the wind," he stated. I perceived the crane's claw rapidly approaching my back. However, there were no actions available to me. I neglected to mention that bending is not permitted in this hole. I heard that I was already in free fall. I attempted to exhale, but the energy quickly faded away. It began to deplete my resources, although my life energy remained intact. There is no need for alarm. I will manage to endure the fall. It is essential to concentrate on the lesson that the spirit is endeavoring to impart in this remarkable manner. Over time, I observed that my body occasionally reduced its rate of descent. The air currents were effectively reducing my descent speed. Without delay, I began to align my body with the currents emerging from beneath. Perhaps due to my reluctance to confront the harsh realities, I committed myself entirely to the process. To minimize dependence on my vision, I shut my eyes. 1 minute has elapsed. Subsequently, another one. At the brink of awareness, I recognized that I ought to have reached the bottom by now. However, my focus has shifted to the air chi source, which is transforming. Upon completing the transition to the higher level, I opened my eyes. You have achieved harmony with the wind, esteemed student. Congratulations. The crane's voice resonated distinctly from above and to the right. Indeed, I was suspended gracefully in the air, gliding from one gentle breeze to another. I was being kept at ground level. Upon reaching one edge, I secured a ledge. In the next moment, I felt the stability of solid ground beneath my feet. While I have a deep appreciation for the air, I find a stronger connection to the earth. I anticipated it would require 5 attempts for you to discern the wind's whisper. I am pleased to acknowledge my error, he stated. He stated that progress only became apparent when I was mere meters from the ground. Following a period of rest and a conversation with the spirit, I commenced evaluating my enhanced capabilities. All aspects had progressed thoroughly, as is customary. Having mastered 3 elements, I found this no longer surprising. During the available time, I chose to acquire knowledge from the ancient spirit. During his instructional sessions, a dialogue emerged. Why was I unable to utilize bending? I inquired. Certainly, there are numerous anomalous zones, yet I have never come across one quite like this. The designation, Chasm of Two Worlds, is not arbitrary. It is established that this realm lacks life chi. To be precise, it is more accurate to assert that our spiritual plane negates the existence of life chi, I acknowledged. However, during the separation of the worlds, some of that chi remained here. It appears that the first avatar and Rava made several miscalculations. Did you observe those green crystals dispersed throughout the area? He inquired, acknowledging my nod. The life energy that persisted here following the separation assumed a crystalline structure, as it was compelled by the nature of the world to exist in this specific form. I found myself compelled to promptly acquire some crystals. Individually, they produced no emissions. These crystals are truly exquisite. Upon breaking a small fragment, a vast surge of life energy emerged, manifesting as a green mist. While I may be overstating the situation, it was approximately 50 of my reserves. That represented merely a minor portion. A significant number of them can be found below. It will soon manifest again as a crystal, approximately in the same location, the spirit stated. Life tends to attract what it needs, as if safeguarding itself from an unwelcoming environment. I proceeded to absorb a small crystal. As I commenced drawing in the chi, I was not anticipating its eager response towards me. Additionally, it felt somewhat detached, quickly aligning with my energy. However, I eventually ceased the activity as it began to cause discomfort. My source had already absorbed 10% beyond its capacity. I should collect additional resources. This would provide valuable training to enhance my knowledge base. I comprehend the concept of life chi, which pertains to the human experience. What are the subsequent steps? Additionally, what is the origin of the wind? Have you had the opportunity to observe the floating islands? He inquired. From time to time, I acknowledged. Indeed, while they may not be ubiquitous, they are encountered with considerable frequency. There exists a layer of earth that attracts chi, causing it to ascend. However, the life crystals counteract this by repelling the chi, resulting in the formation of wind. Have you observed a decrease in your chi? Everything became clear at that moment. A less capable individual in your position would have depleted their energy by the halfway point. I have developed several concepts for utilizing these crystals. However, it is essential to first observe their interactions with the human. It would be prudent to consult with Wan Shi Tong, as he likely has prior experience with them. It was soon time to return. I appreciate your insights. I bowed, feeling a greater enthusiasm for the crystals than for achieving a new level. I contributed nothing. All accomplishments were the result of your hard work, he stated gravely, fading away. That was quite remarkable, I reflected. I would like to pursue that as well. Hello. The library of Wan Shi Tong. During the subsequent week, I conducted thorough experiments with the life energy crystals. It is important to highlight that they maintained their capacity and did not dissipate, even within the human realm, which had been a concern of mine. Probably, they had already acclimated to this protective state, rendering the change in environment inconsequential to them. Aside from being good batteries for my Kai supply, they are also a great means to stay alive, even with fatal injuries. All it takes is to suck energy from the crystal, and it rushes to replenish the Kai depleted by the wounds. According to empirical evidence, a long, bleeding wound will close and be forgotten in half a second. And this is without even activating my own Kai, which would hasten healing much further. This resulted in another fantastic idea. I have many loved ones, some of whom are not physically present. Anything may happen to them, so why not spare their lives? So I started making jewelry for my daughters, students, parents, and closest allies. The list became fairly long. At one point, I was concerned that I would not have enough crystals. But why would they require vast Kai reserves when a little crystal with slightly more than their reserves would be sufficient to heal any wound? Furthermore, an overdose of life has its disadvantages. I have already experienced it. I was interested in what would happen if I consistently pumped myself with more Kai than usual. It began with basic overexcitement, mild discomfort near my Kai source, and a slight rise in heart rate. Despite the discomfort, I felt forced to continue going. Later, my pulse rate skyrocketed, as if it might burst from my chest. I was continually short of breath and unable to acquire enough air. I decided not to risk it any longer and let go of all the excess Kai. Green swirls emerged, unintentionally reminding me of opening the 8 gates. I only drew a little, but what if I accidentally absorbed 100 times my reserves? I reflected. Death would be assured. Dividing one crystal into tiny pieces worked, but they were still too powerful. They had too much Kai. Making them any smaller was impossible, and I lost 2 crystals in the process. Wrapping my hands in my Kai, I delicately split a crystal in half, making sure to seal the exposed edges with my energy to avoid dissipation. I quickly learned that by venting the Kai, I could prevent it from dispersing once it reached the appropriate boundaries for the individual it was intended for. I'd previously assessed the Kai levels in my loved ones' bodies, so I started making jewelry, bending the crystals into more attractive shapes. All that remained was to educate them on how to draw Kai in times of need. Mom, Kaya, Katara, and Yui should be able to pick this up quickly because they've already been taught to add Kai to water for healing. Furthermore, the healing huts now provide advanced education in managing pure life Kai. Suki and Shizuka should have no problems either. They have a basic comprehension thanks to Avatar Kyoshi's workout routine. Others will have a more difficult time, but they will eventually figure it out. Some will fast, while others may take months. I knew there were various books about these gems, but I chose to check into them later. I wanted to figure everything out for myself first, or I'd lose half my interest. Can I make such a crystal myself? The question popped into my head and wouldn't go away. After swiftly finishing the crystals, I tried making my own. I soon realized it was possible. I pressed my palms together, concentrating Kai between them and channeling it all to one area. During the procedure, I encountered a problem. The Kai was kept by my strength, but if I ceased managing it, it swiftly dissipated. So, around 30% of the Kai was used to create a duplicated, protective shell, similar to the one found in natural crystals. So small. I mumbled, glancing at the tiny green sphere that could easily be misplaced. The Kai inside had my flavor, rendering it undesirable for others but easily absorbed for me. I'm still unable to make it anonymous. Perhaps I lack control or understanding of some processes. But it's an excellent technique to raise my Kai, as I can completely deplete my supply in a minute. It wouldn't hurt to keep a couple of dozen of these stones on hand. Later, I'll go over the literature on the subject and note my ideas to test later. For now, I should check on Drea. Northern Water Tribe. Naruto. The capital was alive with festive spirit. Conversations regarding the approaching event were prevalent. Most were enthusiastic, however, a few were not delighted with the young chief's union with a woman older than him who has raised children of her own. He's so grown up, his mother said, as if she were the one getting married. The father took it all in stride, preferring to stay out of the way as the women caused havoc in the palace, where the wedding would be held. I couldn't shake the feeling of discomfort. My intuition, now more evolved, continued to provide strong warnings of oncoming disaster. I wasn't sure where the trouble would come from. Many people despise me. It's possible that the fire sages intended to cause trouble, or that a spirit would break through the barrier. I pondered postponing the wedding, but after staring into Kaya's bright eyes, which had been beaming with love since the morning, I changed my mind. I resolved to inform Wan Shi Tong of my feelings and clear Yo Juan, and Roku's schedules so that they could join me immediately if necessary. Sometimes I think life would be calmer without such advanced intuition. The anticipation of danger is the most unpleasant part, but I am glad for the capacity itself. 2 hours later, the palace's main hall was packed with guests. All of my distant relatives, family friends, and recognized national figures were present. May this union be as timeless as the seas and oceans. Tui and La, great spirits, please guard these two loves, my father remarked solemnly, standing between Kaya and me. Today, she appeared exceptionally sunny. I can't think of a better term to characterize the atmosphere around her. Her eyes were not unsure. They met mine with nearly apparent flashes of adoration. I pronounce Kaya of the Southern Water Tribe and Naruto of the Northern Water Tribe husband and wife. In that moment, I forgot about the perils and the looming future. Only Kaya existed for me. Our kiss felt everlasting, and neither of us wanted to end or cheapen it. It was a mere contact of the lips that communicated all in our emotions. Following the kiss, I carefully slipped a pendant around her neck, signifying that this woman already had a lover. Mom seems very thrilled, Katara whispered. Someday, I'll be in Aunt Kaya's place, Yui thought, stiffening her fists. After an hour, folks approached our table to congratulate the newlyweds. Kaya knew me well enough to recognize my anxiety. Lord Juan, Lady Kaya, and a young servant Bo. Her name was Sumi, I believe. She had worked at the palace for a long time, and I had known her since I was a child. I have no worthy gift for you, she said, her voice changing. But I am ready to take anything from you. It sounded like dozens of voices were speaking simultaneously. The servant's body began to melt like wax. Giant cockroach legs sprang from her body. 1, 2, 10. Soon, a giant centipede with Sumi's face appeared where the girl had been. A strange, terrible smile froze on her lips. My senses alerted me to the presence of a powerful ancient spirit. Everyone, be calm. Don't exhibit your emotions to the face thief, I tried to explain calmly. However, others have already started screaming. Fortunately, his face was turned towards me. In that time, I used nearly all of my Kai to forcefully repress the crowd's emotions, depleting half my reserves. Yui, get out of here quickly. Even masters could die here. My sister didn't ask any questions and began directing people away. Coke, I don't believe you were invited to the wedding, I remarked, gazing at the spirit's ever-changing expression. Just yesterday, Yo read a book about spirits with a section on Coke, the face thief. Talk about the devil, and she appears, right? My apologies, he said, tilting his head toward me and Kaya, who stood firm. I decided to expand my collection by adding faces from the Southern Water Tribe, including Avatar Karuk's wife. Oh, yes, I remember. It was the day before their wedding, he turned to Kaya. Karuk was sorrowful, and Umi, Karuk's wife, expressed genuine sadness. Shielding Kaya, I began frantically circulating water and Kai, prepared to attack at any time. From what I understand, he is not wholly a dark spirit. He has some twisted principles. He assumed the appearance of Avatar Karuk's innocent wife because Karuk had ignored his avatar duty. The key is to avoid expressing strong emotions around him. If you've done anything wrong, you can expect punishment, regardless of your emotional control. It's fantastic to be back in the human world, he said, clicking his many legs and inhaling air via a mandrel's mouth. Especially when you're no longer restricted. A thin red-black smoke began to emerge from his body. I grimaced as I recognized the familiar aroma of Vatu's energy. So the little chance of a peaceful settlement has plummeted. I should act first, I reasoned. If a conflict is inevitable, strike first. Especially since everyone save the masters had already departed the palace. Run to the shelter with the others, I muttered to Kaya, who stood behind me. In the next instant, my body, powered by neutral and chi energy, rammed Coke, causing a big hole in the palace. I grabbed him forcefully and dragged him to the square in front of the palace. There would be extra space. Kaya's face will be mine, as will all of your loved ones, he laughed, not attempting to harm me. Other masters assaulted his gigantic body with their skills, which caused little damage but appeared to amuse the ancient soul. Nothing personal, but to safeguard my mind from his energy's effect, I must either drive you to despair or murder you. He suddenly spoke quietly. No matter how hard I tried, I couldn't move him. It appeared they were just letting me play. I'm no match for an ancient spirit. Should I have contacted Wan Shi Tong immediately? Before I could make a decision, I felt a courteous knock in my mind. I paused for a second, watching with relief as water from the channels reached my body. "I didn't expect you to intercede," Coke exclaimed, hurling his body at me. It was like teleportation. Fortunately, a water whip dragged me aside, preventing the onslaught. "Tui and La. As long as I'm alive, no one will bother you," I promised. But they instantly reminded me that I simply created difficulties for them, not solved them. A river of higher-order water Kai rushed into me. My channels screamed in agony, and my source was tested to its limits. This was only a portion of the two old spirits' strength. I now understand why, in the episode where Zhao invaded the North Pole, Aang morphed into a giant water creature. My body and channels were not prepared for such a burden, thus the best choice was to manage the Kai outside of my body. Soon, a gigantic water figure appeared beside the insect. The power overflowed in me, so I didn't hesitate to launch a barrage of quick attacks. The blows were close but missed. He was too adept with his numerous legs, but I started to keep up with his moves. Dodging another hit, he quickly crept up my body, plainly going for my head, where my true body lay. Water whips surrounded him, squeezing him. He released Vatu's Kai, freeing himself from the bindings. Soon, he'd reach my head. I'd have to temporarily give up my waterbending. The Kai outside my body was more diluted, making the figure appear larger. Concentrating more Kai within my body, I shrank numerous times, becoming only slightly larger than the face thief. Speed, attack, and reaction improved immediately, but time was running short. The longer I stayed in this mindset, the harsher the ramifications would be after the fight, including the possibility of losing my waterbending. I assessed Coke's strengths and weaknesses while we exchanged strikes. His incredible camouflage provided a definite edge. Even the spirits of the moon and ocean were unaware we had an uninvited guest until he presented himself. Perhaps, in human form, he could travel between worlds. His Kai quality and physical traits were exceptional. However, he never used any elements or ranged attacks, therefore he is entirely physical and sneaky. This balances his main advantages. Gritting my teeth, I intensified my concentration on the ancient spirit's Kai, inflicting more wounds that Vatu's Kai could not heal. Now, Coke made an error, which I capitalized. I approached and chopped off 3 of his legs with a water sword, eliciting a piercing howl. I didn't stop chopping his body. The blade became caught in the center, stopping me from cutting him in 2. As I raised my blade for another attack, I temporarily found myself in the air. "We'll meet again, Naruto," Coke promised, now in Sumi's body. His body disappeared from all of my senses in that instant. Brilliant. So he can move freely between worlds. I stopped absorbing the spirit's Kai and stroked my shoulder, where a black mark remained from Coke's last strike. The wound hissed beneath my Kai. Vatu's remaining Kai would not leave me, and mending may take weeks. My waterbending source took a well-deserved break, asking not to be disturbed for a month. My channels were also taking unpaid leave. I got off easy, I reasoned. I should thank Tui and La. Soon, I saw my entire family running toward me, uninjured. My body and mind have finally calmed. We'll talk about the future tomorrow. Right now, I just want to relax. Naruto. Northern Water Tribe. After soothing my family, I was overcome with physical and mental tiredness. The battle was quick, but I had to concentrate on too many things at once. To avoid causing structural damage or injury to humans, I had to confine Ko within our improvised arena. I was constantly releasing Tui and La's extra heavy energy outside. All the while, I had to keep watch of the enemy's moves. The next morning, I awoke to pain that I couldn't pinpoint. It seemed to come from everywhere. For years, I hadn't pushed myself to this extent. It was an unusual experience because I knew that overloading the spiritual body weakens the wielder, making them unable to get out of bed. My mixed nature came into play in this scenario. My channels and Kai have long merged with my physical body, therefore spiritual problems have a greater impact on me. Furthermore, the channels pass through roughly 60% of my body, allowing me to waterbend without using postures or movements. However, some motions are required while developing and regulating the white flame or applying procedures to earth vibrations. "Have you calculated the damage from our fight yet?" I questioned my father while lying in bed. A towering table loomed beside me, filled with documents that could only be signed by the tribe's acting chief. "Yes, we've tallied it all," Arnok said, stepping to the room's single window. It overlooked the square in front of the palace, where many groups of waterbenders were now renovating the surroundings. Even ice imbued with energy could not match the might of an old ghost, whose sheer presence could dissolve frozen water. "So, why are you so quiet?" I questioned, looking at him. "I think I finally understand what you've been saying about spirits," he replied thoughtfully, turning to me. "Before, I didn't fully believe in their omnipotence. They always seemed so distant. But yesterday, I saw how one spirit could erase our entire history. It completely shatters my old view of the world," he finished with a bitter chuckle. "Sorry for doubting you earlier. Now I truly support all your reforms." Yes, my father had not opposed my policies, but he had not entirely supported them either, believing I was too hasty. "It's fine, father," I said, shaking my head. "What about the losses?" "Strangely, only Sumi was lost yesterday," he told me. "Many were lightly injured. The battle's aftermath caused minor earthquakes, and people weren't prepared. Your quick actions saved countless lives. I'm proud of you," Arnuk went on to say. "What else could I expect from my son? Have you found her body?" "Yes, it was in a storage room," he murmured. "I want to see her," I said, rising from the bed. My right leg slid strangely effortlessly from under the cover, followed by the left. "You said even small movements caused intense pain. I used Kai to numb my nerves," I explained, cautiously sitting upright. "And I'm manipulating my blood with Kai, which is now controlling my body." "Better not comment on that," Arnuk reasoned. That morning, I remembered my early attempts with bloodbending. Back then, I used the bloody puppet technique, which was based on controlling rats, to manage my body. As I often say, everything has its purpose. However, without a water Kai supply, bloodbending is impossible, and the channels will not allow it. However, attaining the same outcome via a different way may be successful. In half an hour, I altered the approach to employ Kai while maintaining my mobility. On the route to Sumi's body, my father informed me of the situation. Aside from the square, several dwellings, an administrative building, and a big hole in the palace wall were also damaged. With a dozen free waterbenders, everything could be repaired in a single day. Mournful wails sounded near the door where Sumi lay, as if someone had lost a part of themselves. The servants' relatives and friends were wishing her farewell. Her single family member, her mother, was in tears. She also worked at the palace. Would she want to stay somewhere that reminded her of her only daughter? Sumi's face was covered with a cloth, concealing the majority of her head. We waited for them to leave. While we wait, I detected several unpleasant glances, which my father also observed. "Don't take those looks to heart," he said quietly. "Someone spread rumors that the spirits opposed your wedding with Kaya, sending Ko as punishment. People share amazing stories. I won't react because the more I complain, the more they believe it. Besides, there's some truth to it. Ko came because of me. It's good we have the great spirits of the moon and ocean," and I agreed. "Without them, it would have been significantly more difficult." "You've spoken with them, maybe you could talk to them again? Perhaps they want a bigger pond or something." My father scratched his head, unsure what omnipotent spirits, living as fish for millennia, might need. "They don't need anything," I said, shaking my head. "They just love peace and quiet. The only thing that would help is closing off the spirit oasis to visitors." In my partial unity with their energy, I comprehended their motivation. They've been mastering the water element all along. This location was chosen because of its high spiritual vitality. The moon's energy pales in comparison. Furthermore, they are less troubled here than in the spirit world, where dark spirits desire confrontation. At least until I was born at the pole. Tui and La appear to be a perfect match. They're like two cultivators, helping each other understand the mysteries of water. One manipulates water using the moon, while the other is a purer elemental bender. That struggle propelled me to the mid-stage of the advanced level in mere minutes. Their energy drove me there, and I'm not complaining. It also helped me better comprehend some of the processes I'm still working through. Eventually, only my father, Sumi's tranquil figure, and I remained in the room. I approached her and cautiously drew back the cover. I flinched involuntarily, staring at her smooth, gorgeous face, but without eyes, lips, ears, or anything, only skin. Honestly, even in a cartoon, the sight of a faceless monkey terrified me, let alone in real life. It's disturbing from a psychological standpoint. When I probed her body with Kai, I was appalled by Ko's precise work. Inside her head, her tongue, teeth, and organs were all intact. Sumi died from a lack of air, as if her face had been meticulously removed and resewn. If there had been an experienced Kai healer present, she could have survived. Over time, I may have restored what she had lost. I can't even begin to picture what she must have felt in her last moments. Not seeing anything, not hearing anything. Once I'm back on my feet, I'm going to make a statue of her in the main hall of the palace, I said with conviction. We'll always remember her face. It might be a bit flashy, but I want it. Her figure makes me realize that my enemies aren't exactly saints and could go after my loved ones at any time. That's a great idea, son, my dad said, giving my shoulder a friendly pat. After that, I stopped by to see Kaya, who had been going through a tough time too, of course. Who would be thrilled when a strong, evil spirit shows up to ruin their big day? I'm pretty sure she's heard those rumors about our union not being wanted as well. I spent some quality time with my wife, trying to lift her spirits by giving her a special gift, a ring featuring a Kai crystal. I was planning to give it yesterday, but things just didn't work out that way. The following day, I spotted something out of the ordinary. It seemed like nearly all the masters were in training mode. It's pretty typical, but generally, just a handful of people train hard at the same time. A lot of people believe they've hit their highest point and start to relax a bit too much. Ko's presence seemed to fire them up. Their attacks felt more like playful tickles to him. I'm looking forward to the Masters tournament, I thought, and it's tough not to feel excited about it. Well, at least something good came out of that wild spirit. The Fire Lord's secret chamber. Ozai. The room, which used to be all decked out, is now a bit of a mess. The cabinets had some scorch marks on them. There were broken items scattered all over the floor. The air felt hot and hard to breathe. Those combustion benders. Ozai let out a fierce roar, shooting another blast of compressed flame up into the sky. He was angry about a little piece of paper that had some jumbled words on it, words that only he and a couple of close friends could make sense of. It's going to be tough to fill that gap. Just 5 minutes ago, he got some pretty bad news. He couldn't reach his personal servant anymore. There was no way it could happen. It meant they had finally gotten to him. As he rubbed his temples, the Fire Lord took another sip of the mind-clearing drink. Wow, its effectiveness has dropped by 40%, he thought, glancing at the greenish liquid. Before long, I'll just have to depend on my own determination. He had to speed up his plans. Let's team up with Elder Jien's faction. Jien is a true patriot. He would never wish anything bad for his country. Lots of people still thought that Avatar Wan was the one leading the third force, not Jien. Ozai had a hunch, but nothing to back it up. Azula and Zuko's servants? They won't be able to keep up with mine for ages, he said, shaking his head. As Fire Lord, he had the right to take his children's servants. Each one took a lot of time, effort, and resources. First off, they needed to find the right character. That was the most important thing. They need to have some firebending skills and the potential to master it. The third criterion was having a mastery of Kai, similar to that of the Yu Yang archers. They became these cold, efficient machines for killing and spying. No amount of torture could ever break their spirit. Their training turned their minds into something almost lifeless, even more so than Long Feng's games. Not everyone can handle it. The approach was pretty rough, which led to a lot of kids being taken. At the end of it all, there was just one left, the best of the bunch. There's no way you're taking my nation, he thought. The thought of the combustion benders in charge sparked a fire in him, driving him to push himself harder than ever. He realized his face looked a bit gaunt, with dark bags hanging under his eyes. Nah, taking a break is super important too, he said quietly. He couldn't make a mistake that could cost him everything. As he lay in bed, he kept on with his thoughts and plans, just going over everything in his mind. He looked like he was thinking about something, even while he was asleep. Maybe he actually did. You know, even Avatar Wan didn't grasp all the side effects of munching on so many herbs. The library of Van Shi Tong. 3 pairs of eyes were glued to the scene, holding their breath as a huge green bud started to open up, almost like it was happening in slow motion. The big room, which used to feel so empty, is now bursting with greenery. Fingers crossed for a girl. I said a little prayer in my mind. I don't have anything against boys, and I wouldn't want to shortchange my bloodline, but I'm hoping for a daughter. It seems like, even from way back, I've always had this desire for a girl. She'd be like a part of my woman, a new piece of both her and me. Am I just seeing things my way? To keep the child safe, we can take a look at them right away. Van Shi Tong was already plotting away in his mind, excited to dive into the new, uncharted life ahead of him. In just a few seconds, the outer layer of the bud started to fade away into the air. Before long, Drea showed up herself. With her eyes shut tight, surrounded by vines, She gently held something, or maybe someone, in her arms. Everything looks good, I thought, feeling a wave of relief as I noticed there were no visible problems. Drea, I said softly, hesitant to make the first move. A moment later, she opened her eyes, looking confused and a bit lost. But just like that, happiness and love took their place. She looked down at the precious bundle in her arms. Come a bit closer, she said softly, getting up with care. Gaia and I, almost like we were pulled by something we couldn't see, carefully made our way closer, hoping to catch a glimpse of the little spirit child. I was completely confident about who my child is. I could definitely feel those lively, unpredictable bursts of Kai, earthbending, waterbending, and plant-bending, mixed in with a stronger life force. It's a girl. I wanted to shout it out loud, but for now, I just kept it to myself. Drea was holding this super sweet and adorable little girl, probably around 3 years old. Her little face looked just like Drea's, but with that vibrant green hair of hers. But her skin was definitely human. In the future, she's definitely going to be one of the most beautiful girls, capturing the best of both humans and spirits. One of the first things you'd notice about her was the big flower sitting on her head. The pink petals and the circle of yellow tubes, kind of like a daisy, made me think of an earthly anemone, or windflower, though I still hadn't come across its equivalent here. What do you think we should call her? I leaned in close to Drea, wrapping my arms around her from behind, while my gaze was locked on our daughter. I just couldn't stop thinking about her. The doubts I had about my competence or responsibility before now feel pretty silly. For this little one, I'd want to be the best parent I can be. You can name her, Drea said. What do you think about naming her after a female character from Japanese anime? The girl looked just like Daisy from Love Troubles. Just like I figured, she opened her eyes and started to take in her new surroundings with curiosity. How about we call her Daisy? I suggested with a smile. Her smile and those big eyes brought to mind that cute girl who just seemed to spread love everywhere. I just had to scoop Daisy up into my arms. In that moment, her little nose gave me a cautious sniff, and once she realized I was someone familiar, she cuddled right up to me. Van Shi Tong, seeing that nothing was going to happen today, gave us a nod of congratulations on the new addition and then took off. Gaia hung out with us for a bit, sometimes giving Drea these jealous looks. Every now and then, her gaze would land on me, full of contemplation, like something I had noticed before. It reminds me of the way Jun used to look at me. After an hour of trying to settle the little one, she finally decided to head back to her room. How have you been doing lately? I reached out to Drea through our spiritual bond, making sure not to disturb Daisy. I felt like I was just drifting off, she said, taking a moment to collect her thoughts. I felt this cozy warmth wrapping around me. Then the warmth formed into a ball, which soon became our daughter, Drea shared, her voice filled with joy. Daisy was nestled between us, her little body pressed against her mom's. It felt like they were still sharing their energies, kind of like a kid drawing strength from their parent. Drea was almost there, just a step away from becoming an ancient spirit. She was only a step away from that realm. Before long, she'd be stronger than I am, and that honestly made me happy. Over the next few days, I was all about spending time with my daughter. I gave her hugs, showed her new things, played around, and did my best to keep her smiling. It was obvious she wasn't going to jump into conversation immediately, so I knew I'd need to guide her through everything. She already had a knack for sending her emotions through thought speech. Shush shush shush, she would hiss like a little kitten every time we attempted to dress her. She just wouldn't put on anything. We tried on just about every type of clothing you can think of, from shorts to flowy dresses. Right from the beginning, we realized it was a bit of a lost cause, but honestly, her reaction was just too cute to resist. Her furrowed brows, that fierce gaze, and the flower on her head that looked like it was ready to take on the world made for a scene I just had to capture on canvas. Gaia was with us the entire time. There were times when I felt like she was actually waiting right outside our door at night, just eager to see our daughter again as soon as she could. Even Drea, Daisy's real mom, felt like she faded a bit next to Gaia. She had a natural way of taking care of others, and maybe that's why the world saw her as a mother figure. Looking for more? I asked Daisy as she came up to me again, arms wide open and those big, anime-style eyes locked onto mine. With a parent like this, you're bound to grow up spoiled, I chuckled, picking her up and letting my version of Kai flow. A mix of earthbending, waterbending, and life force. For some reason, she enjoyed soaking it all in. It likely helped her grow. I hadn't explored her energy yet, worried about making a move I couldn't take back, but you know what? Van Shi Tong said everything was just fine. You can't hurt the fox, I said firmly, but honestly, I was excited about what my daughter was doing. That's a good girl, taking revenge for her dad. Recently, she had started to grab onto the tail of the Spirit of Knowledge's assistant. The fox spirit was under her spell, allowing her to do anything she pleased. What can I say? Even Roku, Naruto, and Wan would occasionally just zone out and enjoy Daisy's funny moments. Maybe only Van Shi Tong was immune, but even that's up for debate. He didn't bring up the torn pages of some books. That's a definite sign. We figured she'd start talking first, but nope, she went straight to bending instead. Or maybe it's more about manipulating. The elements followed her lead, responding to her every command. Using her small reserve, she instinctively executed techniques like a master. No doubt about it, she's my daughter. For the first time, I felt a sense of fatherly pride as I watched her creations. She turned the whole library into her playground. With waterbending, she'd fill the room with water, joyfully splashing around among the floating manuscripts, almost as if the owl had forgiven Daisy for everything. There was this one time when she left little handprints on the stone walls. You know, it's funny how you can spot a beautiful flower just sitting there in the middle of an empty corridor. Once she stopped drawing energy from Drea, we could take a closer look at her. There's nothing negative to report, just a lot of positive things happening. She had 3 different sources. So, we're talking about where she got her waterbending, earthbending, and plant-bending skills, which opened the door for her to cause some trouble. Also, her life energy source was doing pretty well. Ipikai. She sneezed adorably, sending golden pollen flying from her flower. Wow, I can't believe how cute I am right now, I thought. Have you thought about the idea of having another child? Gaia has been watching other little kids for a bit now. Everyone had gotten used to her being nude by now, we had become accustomed to it. It felt like we had lost track of who her mom was. Once Daisy began using her powers, she quickly made one of the dresses we had tried to put on her grow. Who's the prettiest? So, it seems that our dramatic response to her outfit actually led to the rise of a future fashion industry giant. She started switching up her outfits every day, mixing and matching pieces that didn't quite go together, but somehow still looked just right on her. Drea began lending me a hand with plant bending. I had given up on making anything by myself, not wanting to go through that incident again. I just copied what Drea showed me, that's all. Yeah, that definitely wasn't a walk in the park. Gaia wasn't quite sure about some things. She definitely leaned more towards the classical techniques in this area. I tried again, but I just couldn't make something that felt right, and I could feel my frustration showing. Here you go. Daisy, looking all serious, squatted down next to me and handed over a perfect copy of the ear that Drea usually makes. Thanks so much, I said with a smile, taking the gift. Daisy noticed I was feeling better and gave my shoulder a reassuring pat, almost like she was saying, it's all good, there's still time. I just couldn't hold back any longer and pulled her into my warm embrace. It was time for another round of cuddles. Pa, she said firmly, which was her way of saying, let me go. I feel like I'm beginning to get my mom better now. She enjoyed pestering me with her affection when we were kids. Daisy had picked up some simple sounds like pa, ma, and na, giving them different meanings and nailing it with her expressions and tone. Naruto, she's not a fan of that, said Daisy's forever guardian. Gaia, as my child's guardian, it's your job to let the coddling happen. So, I just kept quiet and let my daughter go. I made an upset face and took a quick peek at Daisy with one eye. She wasn't around for too long. She quickly trotted over, gave me a kiss on the cheek, and then dashed back. She thought of it as a kind of comforting trade-off. She found it amusing. This mix of adult and childlike behavior. It felt like something flashed in my eyes as she hurriedly pulled Gaia away. Just the other day, Van Shi Tong brought up training again. And you know what? I shouldn't overlook my development. So, I was talking about how the gravity room and lava baths just aren't doing the trick anymore. There was some progress, but it was just a tiny bit at a time. I was looking for something fresh. As I looked at everything I've been working on, I noticed that I had been overlooking bones, organs, tendons, and ligaments. I made the choice to introduce some strong toxins into my body, kind of disabling my second chakra. I'll let my body do its thing and get stronger on its own. I'd use Kai to help reduce the poison's effects. Later on, the Spirit of Knowledge showed me a new room, one that was meant to break my bones. Honestly, I never thought I'd go for something like this, but it turns out I don't know myself as well as I thought. Getting strong means giving up some things, but man, I just can't get used to the sound of my bones cracking. I figured out how to train my tendons and ligaments by myself. Luckily, I managed to get by without needing Van Shi Tong's help for that. Only Daisy loves Daddy, I said, getting some pats and attention from her. Sure, I know I'm not playing fair, but eventually she'll catch on and won't be fooled anymore. I'm going to make the most of this while I have the chance. And hey, Gaia, you can ease up on those judgmental looks. I'm pretty thick-skinned, as it is. This time in my life, I can confidently say it's one of the best, if not the absolute best. Stay tuned for more. Thank you for taking the time to listen to this video. I'm thrilled you watched the video. If you enjoyed it, be sure to like and subscribe for even more exciting content coming your way soon.